So the next layer that we're going to come up against as a reason why people fail to take action is the fit. Better said, I'm not sure if it's for me, which again is the third smoke screen. Circumstantially, it's usually a bit closer to our hearts, so we guard it. But if we've gone through those first two, so the way that we approach this, Ben, in terms of not sure if it's for me, is first of all to go, okay, you are going to have to take on a new identity and have new priorities. So the most obvious example for everyone around adopting a new identity is one weekend, Ben, you decide that you want to go riding a push bike on a highway with a bunch of dudes or a bunch of ladies together. And if you were to wear boardies and a peak cap, you would look out of place. So you have to adopt a new identity. And for those in the know, it's a mammal. So it's a middle-aged man in lycra. So we have to don the lycra. Now, I say we as if I'm doing it, and I'm not. But clearly those who love cycling, who love road cycling, adopt an identity. They put lycra pants on, Ben. They put the tight shirts on where they can put their little gel packs in. They've got their beautiful crafted helmets that will protect them. They've got the cleats that they clip in. All of that stuff, it's an identity that they take on. Now, for me personally, I take on an identity of a mountain bike rider. So I've got slightly baggier pants, Ben. I've got slightly different helmet, but it's the same thing. We take on the identity of what it is that we do. So if someone actually wants to get a passive income for the purposes of our discussion by buying established residential property, 2 or 3 in number with their home and their super, they're going to have to take on an identity because your old priorities got you where you were. So if you actually want to move forward, you actually do have to change it. So if you're saying, I'm not sure it's for me, that's okay. It's normal that you have to put on a different cape. You have to put on a different identity so that you can identify with people that are going in that direction.
And for a lot of the people in our community who are listening to this, or first timers who are listening to this, I'm going to give you some confidence to say, in a lot of respects, a lot of you have already done this. And let me give you this example. A lot of people are fearful of share investing and, buying into businesses because they don't understand it. And, it's quite volatile. And so they see that as risky. The fact that you're thinking that residential property seems and feels a bit safer is you taking on that identity. So there's a tick in the box for you already. Now, subconsciously, you've made that choice. So to Bryce's point, it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to take on that identity, I need to get more serious about this. I need to transform into, all right, well, what does this stuff look like? How informed do I get? And to the other analogy with the bike story is like, yeah, if I'm on my BMX and I'm trying to, cover 60 kilometers versus I'm on a race bike and I'm, aerodynamic and I can move quicker, there's a lot quicker way in which I can be more productive in terms of taking on that identity than trying to battle on into a headwind on a BMX bike. There are obviously identities, and then there are tools of your craft that you will need to understand and get informed about, or you bring in a coach or an expert who's going to be able to help you to do that. So you can see how these little bits of building blocks start building on themselves for you to be able to then say, hey, at the end of the day, I'm a property investor. Or I'm a budding property investor about to execute on my very first purchase.
And what is an identity of someone who does that, Ben? Well, first of all, they spend less than they earn.
Yeah.
They if they're not used to looking at the numbers, they start looking at the numbers. They actually start thinking future orientation. They start to get gazelle-like on what they don't want to spend their money on so that they can free up surplus to invest a bit for tomorrow and invest a bit for today on the things that they love doing. This is the identity that property investors take on. They start to do the things that not many people do, and it may be uncomfortable, but they've got to be new priorities, because here's the statement that will jolt you. The old priorities got you where you currently are. So if you don't take on that new identity, then you're going to be challenged. Then you will probably have that smoke screen serve you by saying, not sure if this is for me. The second way we tackle this, Ben, is the pain of change. So you've got to change to change. So to your point, if you are used to riding a BMX bike, and you start trying to do 100 kilometers on a BMX bike in a peloton of crew, you will get blown out of the water very, very quickly by this peloton. Clearly, there's pain to change. So you've got to change to change. But there's a threshold point here. And this applies to anywhere in our life, Ben, but we're just bringing it down to money here. If the pain of change is greater than the pain of staying the same, you won't do anything, right? But if the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, that's the tipping point, right? So I guess for a lot of people, that FOMO, the fear of messing up, the fear of losing status, the fear of the addiction to status quo, which means I can blame someone else. If the pain of change is not greater, if the pain of staying the same is not greater than the pain of change, if you won't do anything. So at this point, we need to amplify. We need to stack the pain. We need to actually think 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, and try and put yourself into that position that if nothing changes, except that the amount of candles that I blow out on the cake each year has gotten larger, but my circumstances are similar. How does that actually feel for you? Because if that pain starts to build and starts to get you to a point where you do move into that pivot point, well, then that's super important for us. So the pain of change, you've got to change to change. Because if you don't, you're just going to keep doing what you've always done.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful about the plan to become what you plan to become, and aligning your financial goals with your personal goals, right? So it is about the lifestyle that you want to live, the impact that you want to make. If you're not progressing towards that, then ultimately there is going to be this self-reflection where staying the same is going to eventually frustrate the crap out of you, to put it in simple terms. And so we're hoping by illustrating that, that there is a terrific outcome to be had over 5, 10, 15, 20 years of doing this and supplementing your exertion income for a passive income is incredibly powerful for those people who can claim self-funded retirement.
So as you're doing an audit, folks, the last one around, I'm not sure if it's for me or the fit, is kind of it's a hypothetical, and so if you're faced with the challenge of, okay, I want to do a plan to move forward, I want to have a roadmap, but you're not sure if it's for you. Here's the question: ask yourself, all right, what's missing? Okay, and if you identify what's missing, then if that was in it, would it make a difference? Because what you find here is, again, we're talking about smoke screens for people taking action. Once you ask someone, what is actually missing here that you'd like it to have, quite often the answer is, I don't know, right? I don't know. And if that's the case, then it just becomes it's likely just a limiting belief with them, right? And it's got nothing to do with the pathway forward or the plan. Because if we remember what our baseline thesis is, that people do not want to decrease their status, and by making the wrong decision will contribute to them decreasing their status. But if they really confront that limiting belief, and we can circle back to what that is, and you'll see as we move further into the fifth one, we're at the third one now, we can really quickly get to the core. So